Hey there, listeners. Have you read the book Mindset? This is a book actually that I recommend to leaders to read all the time. Carol Dweck is the actual author of the book Mindset, and she talks about adopting a growth mindset and how it can actually transform the way leaders navigate challenges, how they might empower their teams, and inspire success. As you see, how we think affects how we lead. It's an exciting topic, an exciting book, so let's discuss.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
Welcome to the Ask Dennis episode. This is a freestyle episode where I'm asked a question by our listeners or I share my thoughts, experiences, and insights from working with many leaders around the globe. Well, listeners, how we think affects how we lead. And in the world of leadership, our mindset often shapes the path, the journey of our success, and also the success of those that we lead. Now, in this book by Carol Dweck, it's actually a really influential book, and the title is actually Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. What it does is it actually challenges leaders to look beyond fixed patterns of thinking and really start to embrace a growth mindset. Do you know what? As I read this awesome book, it really starts to confirm that how we think affects how we lead. Now, the power of the growth mindset, well, really quite interesting because Dweck's research explains the difference between two types of mindset. Now, I wonder which one you are. Are you the fixed mindset or are you the person who has the growth mindset? You see, leaders with a fixed mindset, they believe that their abilities and their intelligence are static. They tend to avoid challenges. They fear failure and often place limits on themselves and their teams. They might say things like, oh, we won't be able to do that. Or, nah, we've tried that before, but we won't be able to, nah, it won't work this time. Or they might start thinking about vision and something and some bigger goals or bigger picture, but then they start to reason with themselves and doubt themselves. But on the other hand, leaders with a growth mindset, they believe that the abilities can be developed, that they can work through effort and through learning by doing those things. That's where they can actually build these abilities to have a growth mindset and move forward. A growth mindset leader is someone that embraces challenges. They see failure as an opportunity to grow. They tend to foster environments where innovation thrives. Wow, imagine working for an organization where innovation thrives because they create an environment that's great for people to grow and learn from what they may be making mistakes and so forth. Now, the difference matters because in today's fast-paced, ever-changing world, leaders must navigate things like complexity, uncertainty, and this ongoing need to adapt. Now, growth mindset helps us to lead by being agile, having resilience, and being optimistic or optimism. Now, why do leaders need a growth mindset? Well, there's a few things that I've been sort of thinking about this, and that the thing here is that when I work with leaders and teams, the one thing that is clear is that those who embrace a growth mindset raise not only themselves, but the entire organization. There's a saying out there, right, that says, when the tide rises, all boats rise. And this is why the mindset is critical. Because if you're wanting to adapt to change, especially in this pace of change that we're facing in today's world, actually it's really full on, right? It's just full on for all of us. Leaders with a growth mindset are not paralyzed by uncertainty. They can see change and also see it as a way to innovate and to grow. Now, there's a lot of people who do get paralyzed by the uncertainty, the ambiguity, the unknown. But also, these growth mindset leaders, they tend to inspire their teams to face the unknown, but face it with confidence. And I love this word, curiosity. One thing that they do is that they empower others. So they tend to foster or create psychology safety. In other words, an environment where team members feel safe to share ideas, maybe take some risks, and learn from mistakes. Now, this whole empowerment, if I can call it that, really drives things like collaboration and creativity. And those two things are the key ingredients for success: collaboration and creativity. The second thing here I would say is that learning from failure is quite interesting because failure is inevitable in leadership. It's going to happen. So those with a fixed mindset may sort of tend to pull back or withdraw, or they may blame others when things are going wrong. I've always got to say to leaders this: when you start to point fingers, there's two things to think about. Number one, how many fingers are pointing back at you, right? So if you're pointing one finger at someone else, 3 pointing back at you. Number two, before you start pointing fingers at others, you better make sure that your backyard is clean and is good. What do I mean by that? You better make sure that you're doing everything well before you start pointing fingers at others. Because you see, growth-minded leaders, however, they analyze setbacks and extract lessons from those setbacks. But what they do is, this is the thing that I'm really quite so excited about with people with the growth mindset, is that they use these kind of scenarios, the setbacks and the lessons, to use them as stepping stones to be successful in the future. The third thing I would say is that there is continuous improvement. Because you see, it's not just about arriving at a destination as a leader, it's about growing. And a growth mindset keeps leaders curious, hungry for knowledge, and open to feedback. That constant drive to get better enables them to stay relevant and effective. Number 4 would be inspiring resilience. Teams look to their leaders for direction, especially when you're facing tough times or going through a crisis or something that's happening. Leaders who adopt a growth mindset, they tend to model resilience in the face of challenges. Now, they model the resilience. That doesn't mean that they are resilient, because what I'm trying to get across here is that people, when they're in the midst of things, they're not being resilient. They're trying to cope with what's going on. But we have resilience that builds over time because of our experiences, situations, that actually will enable them to cope in the situation. So what they do is that they demonstrate that obstacles are really opportunities in disguise. Now, that's a powerful thing to say, and it's a powerful message for teams navigating uncertainty. I actually think that sometimes, if there's a challenge, do people focus on the opportunity within the challenge, or do they focus on the challenge? I think there is some really good things here for us to do, is to look for those obstacles, but also what are the opportunities that are in disguise. The thing I had, or lessons from this mindset book, is that the book is full of insights, but one lesson there was several lessons about, or several examples that she shared about different leaders, but there was one lesson that sort of stood out, and it's the stories we tell ourselves shapes our reality. So as a leader, the stories we tell ourselves shape our reality. What we think and what we tell ourselves is how we lead, or the results that we certainly get. So if we're telling ourselves that we're not good at something, well, then we're going to limit our potential. We're going to limit our growth and our ability to move on. If we can shift that kind of thinking to, I'm learning to ... then what you're going to do is you're going to open up these new possibilities, opportunities for you. And as I was saying earlier on, there was several leaders that she shared, or some examples, but one in particular that's quite cool is Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. He transformed Microsoft's culture by shifting from fixed to growth-oriented thinking. Now, what he did was he actually modeled himself vulnerability and a commitment to learn. And what he did is he actually inspired the organization to innovate, even though they were maybe facing adversity. Nadella himself has actually written a book as well, and it's called Hit Refresh. And all the employees of Microsoft got a copy. In fact, I spent a week within Microsoft as part of this culture shift and helping the leaders moving forward. And I actually got a signed copy of that book. Brilliant. And so it was quite cool to see how Carol Dweck used that as an example by him shifting the thinking and going from a fixed to growth-oriented thinking in an organization, how it moved on. Leadership really requires you and I to be intentional, adaptable, and inspiring. Now, all of these sort of qualities, if I can call them that, that they really are based in the growth mindset. But as you reflect your leadership journey, I've got some questions for you to ask yourself. Number one is, how do I respond to challenges? Is probably something you can ask yourself, right? How do I respond to challenges? The second question is, am I building a culture of growth within my team? Number three, what lessons can I take from setbacks to drive, to push, to encourage myself and others forward? So 3 good questions. How do I respond to challenges? Am I building a culture of growth within my team? And what lessons can I take from setbacks to push myself and others forward? This book Mindset, it's not just a book. It's actually a manual for transformation, is the way I look at it. Really, it's a call to action for leaders to lead with curiosity, courage, and the belief that growth is always possible. So there's something that Dweck talks about, and in her words, becoming is better than being. So what we mean by that is that, we are always growing and we're always going to become the leader that we need to be and that the organization deserves. But, if you're already being that level, then you're already there, then you're not really growing anymore. In fact, I actually think you're going backwards. Why? Because we know that the one thing that is constant is change. And so everything else is moving forward. And if you're not changing and you're not moving forward, then you're actually probably going back. So let's commit to becoming better leaders. One challenge, one lesson, one mindset shift at a time. Hey, your call to action this week is to download the 10 proven ways to lead and thrive in today's world. It's a document that's got 10 main themes and 42 strategic insights. And I'm going to encourage you to go to the show notes of this episode, wherever you're listening to this. The production team have gone and put a link there for you to click on. You just need to give us your name and email, and that's where we'll know where to ship it. And we'll ship this to you, and then you'll actually have that executive guide for you to look at. Hey, listeners, that's it for this episode. It's always a pleasure being with you. Thanks for joining me on the Leadership is Changing podcast. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.